Okay, this is my 94 FCJ80. I'm doing a LS conversion on. It's a Gen 4. And I was just buttoning up the wiring and realized I might be able to make a decent video because of the stage that I'm at, and I spent a lot of time getting to this point of understanding now. But basically this is what's left of the factory engine slash transmission harness, and this plugs into the factory transfer case center diff lock. So you salvage that guy, and there's a few other things you leave for future use. These are the run to the dash lights, the park, reverse, neutral, drive, those lights. And this engine came with a PSI conversion harness, and it has it's almost completely plug and play. It's very simple, very clean, although some people may not like this corrugated stuff. You can order it otherwise, but this came with the engine, and I bought the engine, the transmission, the whole thing for $1,000. That was not a good deal because I've rebuilt everything, but that's for another video. It turned out okay in the end, but because everything's rebuilt, and I know, but anyway. So these wires are normally loose here, and I added this DT connector, and then this plugs into the factory harness. This is like the check engine light, tachometer. There's one actually goes to the brake lights to turn off the torque converter clutch. Anyway, so that was this will all get tied up and cleaned up, but that was part of the puzzle that you have to figure out. But yeah, you ditch the factory computer and all that. It's pretty straightforward. There's some really good diagrams and pinout sheets on the mud forum. Oh, this is my starter wire. Toyota ran the starter directly to the neutral safety switch and then to the starter. There's no relay or anything. It's all, designed for high amperage. The GM neutral safety switch, you have to run a relay. So this is going to be, I think a lot of people might just run, you could really easily just run this directly to this guy. But I've got little kids and I can't have no neutral safety switch. Oh, this guy is normally the one that goes down to the air conditioning, which still does, but you cut the pigtail off. There's only about this much of it left. And I added this ground because this was a shielded ground, and it's kind of like an extra deal. But anyway, and then the oil pressure sender, I was going to run it up and over the back, but it actually comes in this harness. So right here, and this is the harness that goes all the way around to your fuse box there and then over there. So you either have to tie into it back there and then send it up and over there, or just keep it the way that Toyota had kind of. And so what I did is I ran the oil pressure sender up and over there, and then turn the light on here, and then under the intake manifold. So then my oil pressure sender, there's the stock Toyota one. It threads right into that on a Gen 4, and that is the stock location for the Gen 4 as far as I know. I think it's a DOD thing or something. So that takes care of that harness. This one got pretty interesting, and there's definitely more simple ways to do this, but I thought maybe this would be helpful. Is that so one thing you can do with these is take advantage of some of the stuff that you delete. Like mine, I cut the ABS out of it, and so I had this huge fuse there, and that was these two. Where'd you go? That's these two black wires here are the ABS power. They went to a 60 amp fuse, just a huge fuse. So I ran it to this 10 gauge wire, and then that goes inside there down to the circuit opening relay, which really is a fuel pump relay. And then from there, I tied that off, and then there's a wire that's not used anymore that goes, you know, behind the dash over there, and then that feeds that big bundle that's on top. So basically now I'll have that fuse. I can run my ARB compressor, or not ARB, fire compressor or whatever, and condenser fan or whatever you want. You know, now you have big power over there. And I ran some other wires too, just extras to have for future modifications. And then I took the EFI main relay, which now does nothing, and I basically soldered this guy and tied it so that from the EFI fuse, this one I believe, well, whichever one it is, yeah, that one. Anyway, so from the EFI fuse, it goes out to the plug that used to go and feed the main. It was right, the one that was near the alternator that went up and fed. I believe it feeds the injectors and all that. Actually, I think that's a different. But anyway, it feeds the harness and then goes into the other side. Well, now this is constant power with the EFI 15 amp fuse, goes into my PSI conversion and feeds this whole guy. So my EFI fuse box, which is now the PSI, this is just a, it's like a telephone box or something, but it's still working. But I have a nice bracket, and the thing gets mounted. It gets mounted right there, and I'll make a rubber plate for the bottom. But anyway, so basically I'm using the factory. Oh, and then I stole the it's black with green stripe is ignition on. I stole the one that ran down to the coil, and I run that through this guy, and then that's the switch on, so that tells the relay to turn on the PSI harness and the GM computer and everything. And then the fuel pump, so that one probably needs the most discussion. The fuel pump wire, I believe it was 16 gauge. It could have been 18, but you could tell, I mean, the truck's got a lot of miles on it, but it was very oxidized looking, like it's been hot many times. I don't think it's from a bad fuel pump. I don't think that the wire was big enough. And now we're going to possibly put a bigger pump in it. So blah, blah, blah. I'm putting a much larger 10 gauge wire. That's this guy, is the new fuel pump wire. This is, where's the old fuel pump wire? Because I haven't cut it yet. But it's red with a black stripe. And it had, where'd you go? There it is. Oh, bastard. There it is. Okay. So this is, there it is. See how small that stock? That's the stock fuel pump wire. And also right here, if you don't open this thing up, there's a splice and it goes off to the fuel pump resistor, circuit opening relay, ECU. It literally has like 4 or 5 junctions, and mine was all corroded right here, even though this is an Arizona truck. And again, you could just tell that everything had been very hot many times. So anyway, I ran a new fuel pump wire, and I also am running, just to keep it inside the stock harness, this black and white wire is now my fuel pump feed. It's going to go up through this connector as well. So basically I'll have one connector that plugs from the Toyota side into the PSI side. Let me pause it. So yeah, so I basically ran a new fuel pump wire all the way to the pump. So that way, if I put a bigger pump in, which I'm probably going to, you know, it's obviously a good thing to put a much larger wire when you're kind of stressing the thing out anyway. So I managed to mount the GM Gen 4 computer. It's an E38, I think it's called, under here where the stock automatic transmission computer was. The engine computer was on the other side. Oh, and the transmission computer, the GM one, is on the back side of that plate. There's no way I can show you that. But basically I just used some 1/4-inch aluminum I got scrap from IMS. And then there's a bracket, just like the Toyota one did. It goes up. Hopefully you can see that. Ugh. See that one up in there? A lot of fun to work on. But anyway, yeah, and I rubber isolated them. And then there's the PSI harness. So, oh, and then there's my new Monster fuel pump wire. Monster, I mean it's 10 gauge, but a lot bigger than the 16 or whatever. Oh, and the throttle I'm using is a Cadillac CTS V, because the Corvettes are basically not available right now. There's too many people doing awesome LS conversions, I think. But it worked out pretty good. I had to weld a bracket. I didn't TIG weld any of this stuff. I just don't see the point. It's not a race car or anything. But anyway, yeah, that all turned out pretty good. You can kind of see the overall view there. So then under here, I rebuilt the transfer case and put the Sumo 3-to-1 gears in it. But you salvaged the stock harness, and I kind of rewrapped it and everything. And then you can see there's the 4L80 PSI main plug. It doesn't use this switch at all, but I'm going to use it to get reverse lights and the park neutral safety. And I might try to get at least the park and reverse and neutral light, but the rest of them are really hard to get. The computer actually uses like an algorithm and a combination to find out, at least on this late model, neutral safety switch. Oh yeah, see there's the stock one, so this will plug into that one I was showing earlier. Yeah, these knock sensors have to go between the manifold and the block here, and it's like there's like no room, and there's nothing to hold it, like attach it or anything, so it basically just wants to sit plastic right on the exhaust. And I basically made little brackets like that. You'll get really good at making little brackets like that, but that thing just goes in a bell housing bolt and just pinches this thing against there so it can't fall onto the exhaust. Here's the starter, and all that stuff's pretty straightforward, but again, it's just challenging getting it so that it's not touching the exhaust. It's really close. And then more of this mylar coated fiberglass just to protect, because there's only 2 inches maybe. I guess maybe it's a little more than that, but anyway. Oh, you can kind of see my cooler lines. I made these brackets, and then through the battery cable in there. And then they have a dowel clamp, whatever they call that, strap clamp or something. I really wanted to do hard lines up out the front, but I didn't do it while the engine was out. And by the time I got it in here the last time, this made a lot of sense. I'm not like super thrilled with how it turned out, but I think it'll work pretty well. I used some really good hoses here. Added a filter for the transmission. So, all right, this is a video about wiring, and I'm way off base. Well, hopefully the stuff that I threw in there about wiring helps. Yeah, I really like to use, done a few of these conversions on other stuff. I like to take dead circuits and repurpose them, or, use them for, for other stuff. But yeah, using the EFI main, I know there's other tricks and stuff too, but yeah, if you peel this thing open, and then you can get rid of a lot of stuff too. And this will all get wrapped up and it'll be nice and clean and ready to go. God, this is a massive project. Anyway, if you watched this far, thanks for watching. And if you watched this far, that also means you were almost certainly doing a conversion. Good luck.